So, now the thing is, judging from the teaser and judging from the previous, few days, Cold War could either be very, very good or very, very bad. So I am cautiously excited, but other than that, it seems like it'll be a good game. Whether or not it actually is up for debate. But that's not what we're here for. I'm going to do a top 10 list of my favourite maps. Now, this is Treyarch only, and it's based on my opinion. So if you disagree with my opinion, then make your own list. That's all I have to say. But before we get down into the list, got two honourable mentions. One being Moon, because Black Ops 1 version it's one of the worst experiences I've ever had playing zombies. And the other one is Revelations, because on the one hand, its gameplay is amazing, but its storyline is atrocious. Without further ado, let's go on with the list, and coming out at number 10, we have Gorod Krovi. Now, Gorod Krovi is a good map, and some people put it at number 1, but what's good about it? So, in the trailers we saw it was like a classic World at War vibe. Everything about it was good, not great, apart from the fact that in the trailer they had the PPSH return, and everyone was excited about that. And this came out at the peak of the community. So after almost 7 years since we last saw the PPSH, we got the regular Mark III, which in my opinion is not as good as Mark II, but still a great wonder weapon. And it's great to have a wonder weapon that's not infinite damage. And also the map structure is great. I can't think of that many maps in Black Ops 3 that actually do it better, apart from Horizon, Racket and Shadows. And we'll get to those two later on. But even then, the map structure is outstanding. And the Easter egg is probably one of the best, if not the best, of Black Ops 3, if not of all time. But in terms of gameplay, it's great. It's a great map. The Manglers are a good boss to have, and apart from the lockdown sequence, I think they are perfectly fine. But when it comes to the lockdown sequence, I feel like I have a little too many spawning at that time. But also we got the cons of it, which are the drones, which I'm fine with when they are there during their own round, but when they are there with zombies, they are the most annoying boss in Black Ops 3, apart from any boss in Dexbo. And the biggest con for me is just that when it comes to the dragons, they breathe fire on certain places too frequently. Like if they half the time or half the frequency of how long it takes for the dragons to breathe fire, I would probably put it a lot higher. But as it stands, it comes out at number 10. Coming out at number 9 is Nicktown. Now, Nicktown is one of those maps where it's either you love it or you hate it. And personally, I really like it because it's not meant to be that much of a storyline oriented map, and that's probably why some people hate it, because it's got nothing on story. But for what it does have, it's still enough for me to be satisfied with it. And people say that this isn't a good map because it's a multiplayer map, but I would argue that multiplayer maps would be perfect for certain zombies maps. What else is bad about it other than the fact that there's not much to it? Well, there's no camping strategy, which means that for the portion of players who like camping, they can't exactly do much apart from run around and train, which does help people get better at zombies, but not everyone would want that. But yeah, despite that, there are a lot of pros. The fact that it's a simple map at a point where zombies was transferring from simplicity to complexity. Like I said, it's a combat training for zombies, so it helps you get better, and it's a perfect map for anyone who wants to get better at. And the biggest drawback people have for it is the random perk spawns, but in my opinion, that's what makes it good, because you get a different game every time, about 120 different combinations. Of course, that's what makes it fun for me. We've got a different game in the same map, but also it's a challenge for anyone who's looking for one, and that's why it comes in at number 9. Coming out at number 8, we have Kino. Now, this is also another map which people would probably find to be a little lower down on the list, if on here at all. People call it overrated, but I don't think it's overrated. I just think it's overplayed, which is there is a difference. I feel like because people have played it so much, they don't really like it as much as they used to. But it's still a great map. So what's wrong with it? So the Black Ops 3 engine for me is what makes it more difficult, and also it gives you certain circumstances in which you die at points where you really shouldn't die. But that's just exclusive to Black Ops 3. But the problem that Kino ultimately has with both versions are the Nova Crawlers. I could make a video just talking about how bad these things are, but we don't really have the time here. So what makes it good? Well, first of all, the fun aspect, which is what, I mean, people played it so often, that's why, that just shows how fun it was for people. It's a simple map, once again. Sometimes simplicity is better than the complexity. I'd rather have a simple Kino Detention than a complex one. And in terms of training locations, it's got a lot more thanks to Chronicles. It's got the stage from Black Ops 1. You have the alley now. And you also have the bit next to the alley where the M8A7 is for Black Ops 3. I feel like that's what makes it on this list, the fact that you got more areas to train now. And also the biggest thing about this map is, of course, the Thundergun. Now, I've heard people say, like, I've heard the fact that, yeah, it was intended for 5, but it doesn't matter where it's intended for, what matters is where it goes. And the Thundergun ended up here in its first appearance, and that's what makes this map better, ultimately. And that's why it's in at number 8. Coming at number 7, put down your pitchforks, it's Racket. Now, when it comes to Racket, people would put this top 3, if not top overall, and it's not. I'll tell you why in a minute. But what makes it good? So you got the bows. The Easter egg in itself is probably the best, but really the only thing you can really remember about it is the boss fight, but that's what makes it so good. And also, once again, the setting. Now, as a Brit, I can assure you that I am a sucker for medieval castles. Still, I feel like the setting is what makes it set apart from other maps. And the two main cons about this really is, first of all, the Panzer. So we know the Panzer from Origins, the Claw and the Flamethrower. Now they've taken out the Claw and put in shock charges, which is without a doubt the most annoying thing a boss has in Black Ops 3. And the big one, like the ultimate con, which makes it so low on the list, is that almost every other aspect that I have not mentioned is not original. So we've mentioned the bows, which are pretty much the staffs. We've got the dragons, which are the dogs. The fact that it's a snow map, we've seen that several times before on the Giant, Origins and Call of the Dead. And of course the Panzer, which was also from Origins. So when it comes to originality, which is something that should play a factor into how good a map is, it gets like a 2 out of 10, which is why it's so low down on the list, and why I believe it shouldn't be put any higher, but it comes in at number 7 either way. Coming in at number 6, we have Ascension. Now, this is like the opposite of Racket. While Racket lacked originality, this was full to the brim of it, so it gave us the PhD, which is a fan favourite, and Stabbing Up would play the most underrated perk of the Black Ops 1 series. And also Black Ops 2 as well. So that's what makes it good, just its originality. And the fact that it was the first Easter egg, truly. It didn't just give us PhD, it also gave us the maturity controls and the Ghost devices. And the places to train is what makes it so good, because you've got different places to train. You got the bit outside PhD / Widow's Wine. You got the bit outside of Pack-a-Punch. You got the spawn room, and then you got the bit next to the spawn room underneath Jug. That's 4 places, which means 4 players. Any 4 players could literally play this game and get to a high round on. And that, yeah, it's an easy map. And some people like easy maps, some people don't. I personally think that this is an easy map done well because of what it adds in. Like, you can't have an easy map and have it add nothing, because then it's just boring. But this added a lot in, which is what made it so good. But it does have a con, aside from the fact that it could be considered too easy. This other con being the monkeys. The monkeys, it depends on your perspective on them. I think the fact that these monkeys come every 4 to 5 rounds is what makes them both good and bad, because it happens too frequently, because like those rounds take time with nothing show for it, because it's just 6 monkeys going around stealing your perks. And the good side to that is the fact that you get max ammos and potentially a free perk bottle by the end of it. But obviously when you get to the higher rounds, you're best off just using megas, which shouldn't be the case. But that's what makes it one of the best maps, but also one that can't physically be put any higher. Like, this is the highest point in which Ascension can get to, in my opinion. And that's why it comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5, we have Shadows of Evil. Now, and once again, another great map from Black Ops 3. And also, Shadows of Evil is my favourite Black Ops 3 zombies map. Just to throw that out there. And why is that? It's because, simply, when it comes to all the things that we've seen in zombies, this has given us unique twists to them. So we've seen the 6 generators, which activate Pack-a-Punch. This is 4 rituals, which means similar thing, but also can have the Marg spawn in for 2 of them. Now, that in itself is another stroke of originality, because you got the Marg with, you got the Parasites, and you got the Meatballs. And say what you want about them, but they're original, and they invite certain challenges which other bosses have either failed to do or haven't done at all. And also, it ties into the Apothicon Servant, which is the giant squid which shoots black holes. And in Shadow of Evil, I feel like that's where it's perfected. Like, it's great in Revelations, and you can get the upgraded version, but it started here, and that's what makes it great. As well as that, we also have the training. So you got Pack-a-Punch, which 2 people can train in. Trust me, I've done it. And you've also got the MH-A7 room, which you can also train around in, especially when you've got that buildable there where the rocket shield is. The rocket shield in itself is the prelude to the dragon shield, and it's still great, but it can get you killed, like it has done for me several times. And also the Easter egg is great, but the fact that you have to have 4 players is what puts it down compared to Duraz and Racket and Gorod. And its cons really are the risk of falling off map, and for the first map in Black Ops 3, it's way too complex. I mean, if we were given the Giant for free with Shadows, I feel like this would be fine, but the fact that it's behind a paywall is what brings Shadows in itself down for me. So that's why it comes in at number 5. There's not really much more to say, so it comes out at number 5. Coming out at number 4, we have Buried. Once again, an incredibly easy map. Some say too easy. So once again, that's another case of perspective, like it was with Ascension, but this is even easier in my opinion. And because of its ease, it could be made boring quite quickly, but I had a good time playing it recently, so there's that. Some other bad things, which are either good or bad, is the witches. So either they are unique and they invite a challenge which other bosses haven't done, aka steal your money. And the reason why that's good is because it would leave you high and dry in the maze, which would add a challenge to an easy map. But alternatively, it's stealing your money and it's just wasting your time if you can easily do that. And when it comes to that, it's either one perspective or the other, and that's probably what Buried is in a nutshell. It's perspective. If you see it in a positive way, then you like it. If you see it in a negative way, then you hate it. But one thing that can be undisputed about this is the fact that it's the most creative map in Zombies history. So we've got Leroy, the Paralyzer, the Vulturade, Buildables, and the Chalk. Now, when it comes to Buildables, it gave us the Head Chopper and the Subsurface Resonator, but also gave us back the Turbine and the Trample team from previous map. Like, I feel like they could have got rid of the bank, and that's why it's a bit further down. Everything in the map you can use to your own advantage if you know how, and that's probably why it's considered the easiest map, but it's also why I consider it one of the best, because it's got so much innovation which no other Zombies map has touched on since. And that's why... I almost forgot. It introduced the Reagan Mark II, which is one of my favourites, so that's why it comes in at number 4. Coming in at number 3, we have Doritos the Giant. Once again, you could just say, insert Kino here and be done with it. But I feel like this is better than Kino, because it's the perfect map for all skill levels. And I mean, you can be someone new to zombies, you can just hit the box, get the Wonder off, and just camp on the catwalk. Or you can train around in certain areas. One of the best things about this map, which other maps don't have, is the fact that it's got 3 variations which are incredibly different from each other. So if you want to use the PPSH or the MG42, you've got the World at War version. The drawback to it, however, is the fact that the Wonder Waff is broken. But if you want the fixed version of the Wonder Waff, you can play the Black Ops 1 version. The drawback to that is no PPSH and no MG42 or anything like that. So you're stuck with Black Ops 1 guns. But you get the Wonder Waff as a fixed gun, so that's what improves it. But if you want one that is purely based on gameplay and skill, and you want something added to the map just a little bit, then you can play the Giant, because you can get Stamina up, you can get Deadshot, the Annihilator, and say what you want about the Annihilator, and how that's also ripped from multiplayer. At least it's not essential to the Easter egg like the Ragnaroks were. And I feel like purely on gameplay aspect itself is what makes it so high up. And the main con really about this map is the dogs. Now, once again, I'm fine with them in their own round. I am not fine with them when they are with the zombies, because it takes away some of the qualities of training, so you're left camping if you don't want to get fussed by the dogs. But alternatively, you can also, especially in Black Ops 3, you can just kill them with ease. But you can't do that in Black Ops 1 or World at War, which is what draws those 2 back. That's why I think the Giant is a superior version of it, and why it's in at number 3. Coming in at number 2, we have Origins. Now, Origins for me is probably my most replayed map in Black Ops 2. Because, well, it's got a lot to it. It's got more to it than any map of its time. It's got the staffs where it, actually invented the concept of 4 elemental wonder weapons. It had the Panzer, which was genuinely balanced in Black Ops 2, and even more so in Black Ops 3, because the Claw was a devastating thing. It could get you killed, but if you are quick enough and smart enough, you can avoid it, and you can also stop the Claw from dragging you in. And that's why I think that's better than the shock charges that the Racket one has. Another thing it introduced was the Wonder Fizz. Like, it didn't introduce a new perk, but it introduced this concept of how to get more perks without adding in random perk machines all around the map. And also that's what made PhD come back, and how we got Electric Cherry again. And it also gave us a new drop in Zombie Blood, which is also exclusive to the map. And the reason why I like the fact that we've got Zombie Blood is because it actually ties in to getting more perks, which makes the Wonder Fizz more valuable. So they both complement each other. And the range of challenges also adds to everything there, as well as the exclusive guns. The exclusive guns, especially on Black Ops 2, are incredible. Especially the Scar H and the MG. And then we've got the Easter egg, which, for me, the cutscene was okay, but the way of doing the Easter egg was incredible because it fit with the gameplay. Probably better than Mob of the Dead did, and probably better than most of Black Ops 3. But that's just my opinion. And I feel like the fact that everything complements each other, every concept that they add just has a good way of complementing each other. The tank was probably one of the better transport methods in Black Ops 2, and it's made just getting around the mud a lot easier. And speaking of mud, that's probably the only problem I have with it. And this is only in Black Ops 3, where you are so slow that you can barely move even with that stamina up. That's my only drawback to Origins. Like, you got a trade-off. You can either play Black Ops 2 version, in which the hit ratio, especially with the knife, is not as good and you don't have double pack-a-punch. Alternatively, you could play Black Ops 3 version, but then you would have to deal with the fact that you can't move anywhere in the mud. So really, it's down to you which one you prefer, but for me, I don't even know. I just think that either way, they got drawbacks, which just stopped it from being in the number 1 spot, but it's still at number 2 because it's still amazing. And finally, I've been doing this for about half an hour now, we're coming at number 1, and it's Mob of the Dead. This is straight up, this has been considered the dawn of the golden age for zombies, and it shows. The Easter egg in itself is probably one of the best ones because it's the first time you don't need a 4-player Easter egg done. You only need 2 players at least. And also the Blundergat and the Acid-Gat, all that is brilliant. So you got the Blundergat, which is just a 4-barrel shotgun, and you can pack-a-punch it to the sweeper. I can't think of a better upgrade other than the Acid-Gat and the Vitriol Quithering, which in itself is probably one of the best wonder weapons, if not the best wonder weapon, in Black Ops 2. And we also have, just like with Origins, the gameplay and the Easter egg and the storyline and everything like that go hand in hand. So building a plane is how you get to Pack-a-Punch, but it's also one of the steps, if you do it several times, to complete the Easter egg. You got Health Redeemer and Health Retriever. A lot of the concepts of the modern day zombie map was created here. So you got the Wonder Weapon, which has its own upgrade, personal. It has transport methods. It's got a load of buildables. This map perfected buildables because you can carry more than one at a time. You can place them down in more places. And for me, this has the best boss because you can lock stuff down, but it only costs points. It doesn't really cost anything else other than a few thousand points, which is either annoying, but you can still kill them on the early rounds, and it would not be a problem in the later rounds. So it's a perfect balance, it's nice and easy, and as long as you've got your aim right, you can kill him pretty easy, but he's still enough to actually harm your game if you're not careful. That's just a perfect concept. And the setting is probably the best setting out of all the other maps. I like the Racket setting, I like the setting of Buried, Origins, even Shadows probably has one of the best, but this is absolutely the best. This could have been a perfect map if it was on Black Ops 3. The problem is, it's on Black Ops 2, where it was still one game away from having the perfect engine. Black Ops 3 to me would have been the perfect engine for Mob Z. It's not quite there. It's on Black Ops 2, which is the only thing that draws it down, but it's still, objectively, in my opinion, the best map of all time. So that's my list. What maps would you have? Just let me know. But until next time, stay calm, take things easy, and I will see you in the next one.